Hey.
Perfecto. All right, gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Rugby Scoop podcast or Rugby Scoop space. Today, lots to talk about. Super Rugby, it's back. Gentlemen, Super Rugby is back. Fantastic Rugby is back. Running Rugby is back. What an amazing kickoff for Super Rugby. But also, Scotland, Calcutta Cup, back to back. How's about that? England, in a spot of bother in last night's game. Lots to talk about. Super Rugby, Six Nations, the smart mouth guards. A lot of controversial opinions being shared everywhere. Italy at the moment, really close against France. Wales losing to Ireland. Plenty. But let's start off with Super Rugby, gents. But before we get into it, Vickers, it's close to March. Surely the snow has melted in Russia. How are you doing?
I wish it has melted. But yeah, it's going well. From our side, just took some time off rugby this week, but did catch up one or two games just to get my mind off things and regather myself, because it's quite a lot on pressure when you coach alone. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, fair enough. Understandable. Time to yourself is very important. Very important, especially, like you said, coaching by yourself. I mean, you're looking after more than a lot of things. But yeah, time to yourself is very crucial. Well done on that. Jade, in Bloem, obviously, it's probably starting to get overcast and the sun is setting quite early in South Africa now as we head into the autumn season. Talk to me.
You wish, bro. You wish. Heat wave, bro. Heat wave.
Heat wave.
Yeah, we had a heat wave for like 2 weeks. It rained about yesterday, Friday night. But yeah, it's terrible. It's hot in Bloemfontein. But yeah, otherwise we're good. We're good. Beers is flowing. The beers are flowing, so we're good.
Hopefully not too many for the podcast. But anyway,
yeah, not too many.
Jade, sticking with you, man. Super Rugby kicked off. Maybe we can just summarize a few elements within what you saw within Super Rugby. I mean, how happy are you to see the competition kick off on Friday? Roller coaster, razzle dazzle match between the rivals. Last year's final, Chiefs versus Crusaders. I mean, what are your summaries? What is your summary for Friday's games, Saturday's games, and overall picture of this weekend's Super Rugby competition?
Yeah, guys, you know what? Friday started off brilliantly, absolutely brilliant. The Crusaders Chiefs game was, obviously the game all circled on the calendar in terms of the weekend. We thought, okay, this would be a cracker, and it was a cracker. And we saw two teams go at it. We saw a new Crusaders team, with a few new faces, and I mean, old heads like Owen Franks coming onto the field and changing the game, So that was Friday's game. And then when we moved on into Super, we saw the complaints regarding the gap between the New Zealand and Australian teams, because we saw, the Brumbies against the Rebels was actually a no-show. We all thought maybe the Rebels would, show a little bit of resilience and fight, but I mean, they were nowhere. Okay, they played against a good Brumbies team, but still. Then we saw the force against the Canes, where the Canes, just were in first gear the whole time, and it was so easy for them. Despite, the players that the Force did bring in, the Ben Donaldsons and the Nick Whites that they got in there. And I mean, they've got Tom Franklin in from the Highlanders. So I really thought they would offer some resistance, but they never. Then Saturday's games, it's two early morning games, the Drua and the Blues and the Moana Pacific against the Highlanders. Well, they're games to watch. I mean, Highlanders and Moana was actually a good game. But then when we look again at what they call it, the origin of the state game version, the rugby union version between the Reds and the Tars, was again also, it was errors, or there were some good tries and stuff. But I mean, it wasn't actually the easiest on the eye. It wasn't the best watch. So the gap is there, but the quality in the first game and the quality, if you're looking at the Moana Pacifica Highlanders game, the quality of the rugby we saw there, I mean, it was entertaining. It was end-to-end stuff. It was, for me, I mean, that first game, that was the game of the weekend. The way the Blues and the Chiefs and the Crusaders went at each other, the way the Crusaders came back into the game, that was just a game for me for the weekend.
Fair enough, fair enough. But sticking with that game of the weekend as well, I mean, who impressed you? I mean, who, besides obviously team effort, but I mean, who stood out for you from the players that were in that game from both teams?
Okay. Yeah, so from that first game, who stood out for me, obviously, from a Crusaders, I look at it, the fullback, Finau, he stood out for me. Then it was Owen Franks coming on. You know, I spoke last week on Pirates Pod and I said that the Crusaders have Moody, Franks, Tamati Williams, they have George Bauer and Fletcher Newell in that squad. You know, that's all black props. So those guys can milk a few penalties at scrum time and get you a foothold into the game. And that's exactly what Owen Franks did when he came on. He won like 3 or 4 penalties, crucial penalties, got the Crusaders back into the game. And for me, that was, you know, he rolled back the years there, Owen Franks. That's on the Crusader side. Obviously, Ravis Rayana had a solid start, but not that, you know, he can still get better, but I'll give it to him as his first game. Disappointing that the centers really didn't get into the game, Dallas McLeod and Levi Moore. But, I mean, from the Chiefs, I mean, Damien McKenzie was outstanding. Stevenson was outstanding. When McKenzie went off, we saw the drop. Finau was outstanding. His touches on the ball, his skills, his handling was just brilliant. And then the 2 locks, you know, eye-catching for me, the work they did in a contact situation, similar to what Kenneth Byrne does for Ireland, you know, getting footwork into a contact situation, making an extra meter or so. That was Akwe and Vai. They were actually good, you know. And the scrum of had a good game for the Chiefs. But both teams' defenses, especially the Crusaders, there was a lot of how can I put this? But I mean, there was disjointed between the defense of the Crusaders, especially at 15 and 10. So we saw the fullback shoot out a lot of times, but don't get his man. And then that leaving, you know, guys like Etienne Anaseturo with the overlap, they're going to step you. But I mean, the cover defense wasn't even there as well. So I think the Crusaders can really work on a defense. I think they will get better, obviously, you know, with Whitelock and Mwanga and Will Jordan out. That was actually the spine of their team. And you could also see when the Crusaders went to lineouts, they were very rushed at lineout and they lost a few ball on their own throw as well. So, I mean, that was un-Crusader-like, you know. So, yeah, that was for me the standout in that game.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, looking at the footwork element, I think I also noticed a few carries from Tupovai. Every time he got the ball, he's no longer just running directly at the players. Now he's starting to move either left or right, shimmy inside out, and then carry, which means now he's actually spent some time working on his on that particular skill set. Maybe going into that camp with Razor or his current coach at the Chiefs can maybe have influenced this particular element into his game as well. Looking at Rivez Rehana, who is the nephew of a former Chiefs winger, Bruce Rehana, for those who are probably my age, who probably know Bruce Rehana. But what are your thoughts in terms of first 5? I mean, at 10, Damien McKenzie stood out, obviously, until he left. And Rivers Rehana probably didn't have a solid or any impact into the game. But obviously, like you said, the midfield of the Crusaders didn't get much ball as well. McLeod and Levi Moore. I mean, that's a solid midfield as well. But let's give them some time to actually develop in there. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, so for me, Rivers Rayana, obviously, you know, he's from Northland. He's not his first time he's in this Crusader setup, so he actually needs time to settle in. I think the plan of action was to let Fergus Berg start at 10, but he's injured, and then Teye Kamara was always going to be their backup. But I mean, they were forced into getting Rivers Rayana, especially with David Avili, who is the makeshift, maybe third choice fly-off as well, because he can play there. He also got injured, and that's why they drafted in Rivers Rayana. So for him to come into that setup was all about taking his opportunity, Scoop. We've seen stories like this before. A guy come from nowhere and takes his opportunity. I think Penny will start him again next week. I don't think he will drop him and make too much changes against the Stars next week. I think he'll give him 2 or 3 games, to settle in. But he was okay. I'll give him a 6 out of 10, if not a 5 out of 10. But I mean, he was okay. But what they need to do is in the Crusaders is they need to actually let Lever Moore be the outball a few times. I mean, I don't think the Crusaders is used to since maybe having a Robbie Fruin in the team and Sonny Bill Williams back then, where they had a real big center, power center that, they could get an outball from. Small, being the loose forwards, the carries for them. So maybe, maybe they can make that adjustment, and then the next phase will give him some more time at 10 to make another decision, Just use Levi more, and, even Macca Springer as well. He's also a big ball carrier on the wing. So, yeah, I think let's give him some time. As for Damian McKenzie, I mean, he was brilliant. The 50 minutes he was on the field, he was absolutely brilliant. I mean, if you guys want to really go and have a look at it, I think it's Rugby. You just retweeted it now as well, Scoop. Is it Rugby Pass that mentioned the makeup of the Chiefs players? And you can actually see the communication from Damian McKenzie to I think it's Forbes Combling, the winger. With the chip that he put through. That's Damian McKenzie. He's all action. He's at 100%. So, I mean, you just go and look at that small clip and you can actually see the way he communicates on the field. He does everything at 100% for the Chiefs. So, when he went off, there was also, the Chiefs went a little backwards. But, yeah, solid start from him as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's bring in the other lads who are in the north, who are not familiar with the south of footy. Anyway, Vickers, you had a particular interest on the scorelines regarding Super Rugby. Talk to me.
Yeah, obviously, Jade has put it out nicely. Thanks, Jade. Look, for me, I think it was more I was surprised with that first game because, I mean, we all know that first game was always going to be massive. But the other games is pretty much what it was supposed to be, and it's not obviously good to see the Australian sides not pulling through again against the New Zealand sides. But it's one of those things. But I saw the try that one of the tries that Damon McKenzie created from catching the ball at the back. I thought that was brilliant, and I thought it now fits in what Jade is talking about in terms of he felt he had a brilliant game. He was comfortable. So it's an old McKenzie back. We can say it now, but we'll see how it goes in the next few weeks. But I thought that was good. But yeah, other than that. Watched a little bit of the Canes Western Force game. It wasn't much to write home about, but Canes were just being dominant.
Yeah,
I felt also that obviously with Force they didn't get that stopping power we always talk about, and that I think that's one of the reasons why Canes it felt like it wasn't like an easy game. With Western Force having signed. Obviously, a guy like Nick White, it's good for them, but at the end of the day, you can't have a solid 9 with a non-dominant pack, and I think that's probably one of the things that will be get them into trouble going forward. But it was good to see Nick White get his first try, and that's it.
Yeah, fair enough. Sticking with you, Vickers. Looking at that Damian McKenzie try, right? Last week we spoke about that whole Dupont law where players would have probably been camping in the halfway line from that kick, standing in front of the kicker, which would not have allowed Damian McKenzie to run back. So from just your perspective or your point of view, I mean, are you still happy with the Dupont law being applied, or would you want it to be scrapped where we can get players at fullback to have that freedom of counter-attacking?
Look, having played fullback myself, having enjoyed a lot of space when I was a fullback, because you always wait for that one-on-one. You always wait for that one-on-one contest with your opposition that is chasing. So for me, I've always preferred that kind of setup where you can beat one man and then obviously target the mismatches, which is the bigger forwards. So that Damon McKenzie try is perfectly why I would always prefer not the Dupont law, based on the fact that one guy will have to be up front, and then as steppers, you find a way through and find the mismatches, and that's exactly what it did. And again, Damon McKenzie was playing 10 and Stevenson fullback, which is when those are the support lines that we talk about as outside backs, is that if you can get your support lines and the shoulders off your dangerous players, and that's where we can shine.
Yeah, fair enough. Hugh, the man who is based in England, how are you doing?
Good, mate. Thanks. How are you?
All good. Did you manage to get a sneak peek of the best rugby competition in the world?
The URC wasn't on this week. I didn't get to see the games. I haven't got my Sky subscription renewed at the moment. I'm going to renew it when the Formula One starts. I'm putting it off till then, saving some money. But I've seen some of the highlights going around, and it's present and correct. We've got forward passes, we've got defenses going AWOL, we've got Australian players being terrible. Super Rugby is back.
All right, we'll mute this part for our New Zealand and Australian supporters. Jade, you want to chime in there?
I've had friends messaging me saying, on the Pirate Pod, you picked the Waratahs to make the playoffs, and they're terrible, getting destroyed by the Reds. So you guys dragging my reputation once again.
100%. Jade, check in there.
Okay, you know what? Let's not read it too much into the task, because they had a terrible injury the Friday. The centre, what's his name? I can't get his name now, but the inside centre, he had his neck in training, and I think, that's little put them back. They had really a terrible incident at the captain's run on Friday, so I think maybe a little bit that put them off. And obviously the Reds and the Leskies is a different beast this year, as we said they would be. But like I was wanted to add to that, Scoop, before we finish up on Super Rugby, the team that impressed me the weekend, and I mean, if you look at the result of the game, it wasn't as runaway as, the score reflects, but the Highlanders against Moana Pacifica. In the first half, Moana Pacifica only gave away one penalty. I think that was until about the 35th minute or so. And for that team, I mean, that's been receiving cards last season so much, ending the game sometimes with 12, 13 players. For them to make that step up, it's really positive. They've got a new structure there. They've got William Avili at 10 now, and Julian Savia at 12 with, I think it's Angelo Lualia at 13. But they've got a solid pack as well, with Lay moving over from the Blues there. They've got a good pack with Molly at Uka as well. So I think it's a team that's not really going to roll over this year. I think if they can get and keep their players fit, they will also put more of a challenge up this season. I really hope that, like I said, they can move into Samoa or Tonga one day and play their home games there. But I mean, for me, that was actually one of the standout performances this weekend. They ran the Islanders close. Your guy from Wales, Rich Patchell, actually had a solid game at 10. I was actually surprised, I really wrote him off as a 10, and I didn't really see his qualities, compared to what we used in Super Rugby. But his ball playing out of hand, his passing, he was actually brilliant for that Islanders team. And that Islanders backline is actually a backline that you can have a look at and watch, because, I mean, they've got some solid players there as well. I think the try from Sam Gilbert at the end, that was actually one of the tries of the weekend. And then we obviously see Fakatawa. I mean, once he gets into the game, he's really a joy to watch. So, yeah, if you want to have a look at a team this year and watch their progress, it's Moana Pacifica. I think they're going to surprise a few teams this year. I'm calling it early on the pod. And I mean, I'm really surprised with the physicality they bring, and also they actually discipline this season.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I noticed the same thing. I mean, they were in the game for at least 72 minutes until the Highlanders Highlanders basically showed their discipline and showed their maturity as well, which I was also impressed with. Like you said, I mean, that try of the season basically rounds it up, right, in terms of how well coached are the Highlanders, but also the fact that Moana Pacifica now are starting to get close, but not yet there. Now they just need to manage that full 80 minutes in the games as well. So, but yeah, I'm also impressed by them. I think Tana has got a very good strategy there. They're very direct from the breakdown. So there's one pass off the breakdown, and they literally go direct and set it up to suck the players in, right? And then obviously after that, they go out wide. And Julian Sevilla is showing some maturity and some leadership and some experience in that back line as well, which is also very good, very good. But anyway, we've come to an end of Super Rugby, guys. One thing that came out, or that's creating a lot of conversations, a lot of controversial conversations, is the smart mouthguard. In Europe, they're already using it, but in Super Rugby, the first weekend, we heard Scott Barrett say a few words regarding this particular aspect. Actually, let me start off with you, Hugh. Obviously, the smart mouthguard is to prevent, obviously, or to prevent head injuries, or to be aware of head injuries at a quicker rate for the doctors that are outside, obviously on the sideline of the pitch, to recognize and remove in those elements. But how is it received in the North? Because we'll also talk about how it's been received in the South at the moment, because we saw Anton Leonard Brown at a very crucial moment of the game on Friday being pulled off. They were inside the 22 of the Crusaders on the attack. And in those moments, that's a key player. That's a very valuable player on the attack. But yeah, how has it been received in the North? And then we'll share how the South has also responded.
Honestly, I don't remember much conversation about it in the North, if at all. When it was announced, there was obviously a lot of praise for it, because we care about the concussions that the players are getting, and we want there to be steps to make those less prevalent. And we've got the very high-profile lawsuits going on against the unions about these players with early onset dementia, and any kind of steps that are in the direction of mitigating that, everyone's all for. And I can't recall any discussion about a player being pulled off and people not being happy about it. We very much have the attitude that the scientists and the doctors know best, and if a player's got to come off, he's got to come off. So I can't honestly recall a single controversial incident of it being implemented at all. I do know that in American football, they tried putting the G sensors in the guys' helmets, and they found that those sensors were being triggered. Like when they would score a touchdown, everyone would go and hit each other on the head, and as part of the celebration, and the being hit on the head was triggering the helmet to say that this guy could be concussed. So I can see how the technology would have teething problems, but I think give it, with everything new, give it some time and it'll be sorted out. So I would chill out about it personally.
Fair points. Vickers, you're a coach. If it's implemented in your team, you're on the attack, your key player or your star player gets pulled off. I mean, how do you respond to such things on a coaching level, but also at the same time understanding that obviously teething problems are part of technology? We're trying to make the game or the sport as safe as possible. I mean, now, what is your response, or what is your outlook on this particular aspect?
Look, I haven't read much about it, but first things first. For me, one of the things that I do for the team is I hold quite a lot of seminars with my squads. I do those concussion seminars. I do just on analysis. I do on almost like medical. I do a lot of sicknesses and all of that in terms of soft tissue muscles, chronic injuries. So I do give my players quite a lot of background in terms of how I can go about it. So if we're talking that you need to bring in technology for concussion, basically as one of the preventers, I think I'd be pretty much disappointed, to answer your question, Scoop, because I would feel that all the players should know that there's nothing more important than health. A healthy rugby player is best, not trying to go out there and smash or win a game. For me, it's always been like health is more important than the rugby player itself. I would prefer having a rugby player being 100% know that I'm good to go to play, because that's where the trust comes in. And I think that's where we can educate our rugby players in terms of not trying to force a situation just because you're enjoying the game, you're in a position where you're loving the game. So for me, I wouldn't go that route of that smart Mouthguard, because of the fact that I trust my players fully. That if you're not good to go, you can tell the coach. The result won't matter. It's about just making sure that the player's health comes first.
Different. Fair enough. I see Hugh is hot on your heels. Yes, Hugh.
I just wanted to ask the question: how do they know it was the smart Mouthguard that triggered it? Did they announce the smart Mouthguard has pulled this guy off? Does a little graphic come up? Because surely the call could come from anywhere, because they've got ways of, like, there's an independent doctor at the ground who watches the game, and if he sees something, then they can pull the player off. So how does everyone know it's the Mouthguard, or have people just assumed it and this kind of story has run away?
No, so basically after the game, Scooter, actually during the game, there must have been at least 2 or 3 players that have been pulled off, and obviously the information was referred back to the commentary that a certain player has been pulled off because of the smart Mouthguard. They're just going to check, but those players ended up coming back onto the park. With the Anton Leonard Brown one, I think there was a bit of time on it because he was literally on camera, on TV, basically asking, why am I being pulled off? And obviously the medics on the side were actually telling him to come off. He needed to also be checked. And I think Chiefs were on the attack at that particular moment. And then Scott Barrett also now after the game was interviewed about it and said his opinion about it as well. But there was a bit of resistance regarding, but obviously understanding the importance of it as well. But yeah,
for me in that scenario, the players need to be told to shut up, I'm afraid. Like, if the doctor's told you to get off the pitch, get off the pitch. Stop whining about it.
Yeah, players are always resisting, actually. Even if there was no smart Mouthguard, they're always shaking their heads, right, when they're being pulled off by the doctor. Vickers?
No, look, I just wanted to also, like Hugh has posed the question. The question is, some players will always be biting hard on their mouthguards just before they take contact. Does that mean now that smart mouthguard is going to trigger that there was a head collision, although there was nothing of the sort? And also, players like Lucanio Arm, they chew their gum guard. They chew their bubble gum. So does that mean that those players will be forced to start wearing mouth guards? Otherwise, they won't play. So it's those kind of questions that we need to be asking.
And those are very good questions. And obviously, I think, like we said as well, with everything new, with technology, there will be teething problems. But I think let's give it some time and see. I don't think South Africa has implemented it yet, but we'll see. But I think what South Africa has done is mostly implement that below the sternum or the below the nipples tackle with universities. Jade, your thoughts on regarding this topic?
No, I'm with Vuyo on this. Let's give it time. Because it's not mandatory in the north. I know that in international rugby, it's mandatory to all certain teams have a code. Like the All Blacks had a code with Ori Savia. They got a few fines for not wearing his mouthguard. Like the one for Merwe scored 3 tries yesterday and he didn't have a mouthguard in. So it's not mandatory, but in Super Rugby it's mandatory to wear the smart mouthguard. If it is a way that the IRB and everybody is going to move forward to stop concussion, and after this year, if they do look at the results and they interpret the analysis in terms of it and see it does benefit our game, then let's go for it. But if it doesn't, if there's too much loopholes, like Vuyo has said, you get guys that grind their teeth. I know one, for example, is Rory Arnold and the other Arnold that plays for Australia. They grind their teeth. There's a few times when Rory Arnold played in the Currie Cup in South Africa, it was actually a biting incident, but it was proven that he grinds his teeth, so that is why he didn't get the suspension. But, that's comes into play as well. But let's look at the pros and cons at the end of the season. Let's look at the analysis. Let's look at the data, the interpretation. And then from there we can make the interpretation as to what what the best way forward is. One thing I would like to see change, if they are going to implement this, is maybe give a team another substitute, because it's 10 minutes for HIA. So you have to go off for 10 minutes. That's the mandatory call. So it's actually frustrating. Sometimes you might run your bench dry, and then you have a backline player that needs to go off for HIA. So maybe if you're going to do that, maybe allow a team an extra substitution. Maybe you have 9 on the bench instead of 8. And also, like we also said, there's certain rugby players that you just don't want to go for the HIA test, because, they may, if you ask them a general question in general, they might just answer it wrong. So, those are actually high-risk players that you don't want to go for HIA test as well. So, I think let's look at it after the end of the season. Let's look at what it's done and how the players have benefited from it. If there's been less concussions on the field and we can prove that, from the season, that it's worked for the game, yes, I'm all for it. But if there's been too much controversy, no.
Fair. Hugh?
Just on the teeth grinding thing, I'll have to look up how the technology works, but normally with these things, they're like G meters, so it's all about the speed of the impact. So I would think that if you were grinding your teeth, that would be quite a slow thing, so it wouldn't trigger it. It wouldn't be like, you wouldn't be able to do it from squeezing your teeth together. It needs to be a fast shock, I think. But I'll look up what the technology is. I would be surprised if teeth grinding would set it off, but I'll look it up later.
Fair enough. Thank you, gentlemen. That was very nice, actually. Now, next topic. Big one. This Saturday. And obviously Sunday, one game, but nonetheless. We had Six Nations kick off again after last week's break. And we had Wales versus Ireland, or Ireland versus Wales, if you prefer. We had Scotland versus England. And then today, France and Italy are still on. But I think we should start off with the England and Scotland Calcutta matchup. Hugh, I'm jumping back to you. England versus Scotland. Your views?
Yeah, interesting game. Tense game, I guess. Kind of, if you look at the stats after the game, Scotland didn't really need to do anything to win this. They had Duhan van der Merwe scored the 3 tries, and one of them was a fantastic individual effort. And then you had someone like Finn Russell. Finn Russell these days for Scotland. So, for all the talk of England changing, Scotland have completely changed how they play. And they kick more than anybody. And Finn Russell just stands in the pocket behind the rucks. He gets the ball back and he hoofs it long. And he's very, very good at it. He's become very adept at that. And for all that people say that that's George Ford's great strength, and it is, it's something that Ford is very good at, I think Finn Russell has really become the master of it at this point. And yeah, like I say, with England, it felt like they didn't do anything to counter Scotland at all. It's like they didn't come up with any plays to target Scotland or any strategies to counter Scotland's strengths. And Scotland, as I said, didn't need to do anything special or be particularly remarkable to beat England in this game. But at the same time, England didn't really bring anything themselves to test Scotland or counter them at all. So it was just kind of pretty comfortable and chilled out for Scotland. All they needed was the moments from Duhan van der Merwe and Finn Russell to kick his goals, and that was it. So, yeah, it wasn't maybe the highest quality game ever. It was tense-ish, I suppose, and there were some, plenty of exciting moments in the game. But I feel like England's comfortably a level below the top sides in the world at the moment, and Scotland have managed to adapt their game and become a very different side in the last couple of years, and it's working for them. They could be very, very easily 3 from 3 in this championship. So, yeah, it was just kind of how I expected it to go. I think 4 wins from the last 5. I think it's 6 from the last 7 Calcutta Cups have gone to Scotland. I think they've established themselves. They are clearly a better team than England, and this game pretty much went as expected.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. First of all, Stewart was dropped in this for this game in particular. Vuyo. England, I understand last year, Borthwick was new in the job. I think he had about 2 or 3 months before Six Nations, or 1 month or whatever. I understand how they lost to Scotland, but he's had a whole year with this English team. He played in the semi-finals of the World Cup. England have won 2 of their games in the beginning of the Six Nations, and they've come stuck once again against Scotland. Borthwick has taken pretty much all of Springbok's previous coaches or assistant coaches, be it attack or be it defense. Now they are in his stable. Again, 12 months down the line, Scotland have come and stopped England in their tracks. Vickers, what are your thoughts with regards to this game in particular?
Yeah, so I honestly think there's a way you should approach Six Nations. There's a way you should approach Rugby Championship. There's a way you should approach a World Cup. And even if we take it further, our summer, winter tours, our end of the year tours, there's a way you should approach every single tour based on what the opposition is going to give you. So what I've seen from that game is that England have gone from when Borthwick started to the World Cup, which they managed to get the results, till now. He hasn't changed much in his approach. Yes, he's got the coaching staff. He obviously the coaching staff, it's too soon to tell if they've made an impact, but the style of play hasn't changed. And the only thing that I've seen from Scotland in terms of the approach, they approached the World Cup England differently to the World Cup Scotland differently to the way they play the Six Nations. And that's what I feel has worked for Scotland. Like I say, that dominance in collisions, I think I said it a few weeks ago, that dominance in collisions, that putting the opposition under pressure. We saw that happen in the game. And there were a couple of knock-ons from England. They couple of knock-ons in terms of carries. There were a couple of knock-ons in terms of just being under pressure as a player. And I think what I saw from Scotland, it's actually funny. Take it back to way back when New Zealand used to allow you to play, but when you make a mistake, we're going to punish you. For me, this was a copyright of something similar. So they didn't do much. They just had to wait for them to make the mistake, and they made them pay. And for Scotland, as Hugh has said, they've adapted they've adapted their game based on they realize that they've got a special player in Finn Russell, and if they can get Finn Russell to have more high impact decisions in a game, chances are he's going to win them the game. We can actually even call it the money ball. If we were talking about money ball at the moment, he would probably be the highest in the list in terms of how much he's rated with stats and everything. So yeah, look, it's something. It was something that I think Gregor Townsend probably realized with his coaching staff, and credit to them. They've done so well in making sure that the Scottish have try to tip the scales towards themselves, and I think at the moment it's actually evident that they're actually doing very well. I wish, obviously, going into a World Cup, I wish they would actually approach a similar mindset in terms of how they can beat the teams in their pool firstly, and not just go in there with the sense where it's a World Cup, we're going to be nervous, we're playing South Africa, we're playing Ireland, those kind of mentality.
Yeah. Well played. I mean, well said, rather. Marquee player, Finn Russell, definitely. Jade, England, sticking with England, they, I don't know, for me, last week or 2 weeks back, we saw Scotland had a lead, and Scotland wanted to waste time with kicking, waiting. England, at the breakdown, I mean, even one of the guys that I follow, I forgot his name now, even recorded the 17 seconds at the break. In not every breakdown, but most of their breakdowns are so slow. England are behind on the scoreboard. You're chasing the game, but every chance or opportunity they got, box kick. Every chance opportunity they got, box kick. This is 17 seconds box kicks, by the way. And there's no countdown in Six Nations like we've seen in Super Rugby, where the referees are giving them 5 seconds before they kick that ball just to get good continuity. Yesterday's game, delayed, like Hugh has said. I mean, there was not much into it. because the guys were just giving us a kicking spectacle. What are your thoughts? This game from yesterday, last night.
Yeah, you said it perfectly in terms of, it's their mindset. So they get into a game with a specific game plan at Borthwick. He trains them and, he tries to install in them, and they stick on this game plan. Even when they're chasing the game, they stick to their game plan. I mean, it was funny in the last 3 minutes of the game yesterday, we saw them throwing the ball around and throwing 50-50 passes, and now they're trying to speed up the game and they're looking for the bonus point try and they're getting desperate. But before that, it's been the same old box kick, taking their time, box kick. I don't know. I really don't know. Is this the way he's going to go forward, or does he have something else? Is he building towards something? I can't see what he's building towards. I mean, it's not like they don't have exciting players. The guy that scored the try, the Welshman, what's his name? Yeah, I have to call him a Welshman. I mean, he's exciting. I mean, the fullback that played yesterday is exciting. The Smith, the other flower that plays for Saints is exciting. So they've got exciting players there. But I mean, sometimes you gotta tell the guys, listen, this is my game plan. But I mean, you have to adapt to change as well. Certain things you do in certain game situations where you can adapt. We don't need to just go into box kicks the whole time. I'm not sure what is Borthwick coaching. I mean, for me, Felix Jones was highly rated by Lawrence Delario, and we could see the impact that he had on the team. That was what's coming out from the ITV guys a few weeks ago. That's what they said. Felix Jones has made a big difference in this team. I don't see any difference in this.
So Jade, you're telling me you watch ITV not on mute? That's amazing.
snippets on X. There's only way I get it. But anyway, that's what they were saying. And I mean, now yesterday, I looked at this and I thought, this is actually they're badly coached team. This team is badly coached. They don't have terrible players. They're just badly coached. Scoop, I want to actually, I see Vuya's got his hand up, and I want to direct this question to him. Actually, we can't take away from what Duhan van der Merwe did yesterday. I mean, scored a hat-trick yesterday. I mean, surely one of the form wingers in the world has to be up there with one of the best wingers in the world. And there's been a lot of saying is, do we miss him in South Africa? Is he one that got away? Now, my opinion on this is, yeah, Duhan van der Merwe is brilliant, but in the right situation and in the right team. We saw him with the Lions a few years ago. He was actually ineffective in the team playing under Gatlin, where it was kick chase the whole time. That wasn't his game. But with Van Russell there under Townsend, he's actually brilliant. He's world class. Did he easy one of the South African players that got away? I would actually say no, because you look at the time that he went away. We had Nkosi, we had Pimpi, Colby, we had Kurtley Arendse coming through now with Moody. So we had really top and quality wingers. I mean, even Jesse Creel could do a job there. Vuyo, do you see a guy like Duhan van der Merwe, you as a fullback, do you see him as one that got away, or do you see him in the same situation as maybe a James Lowe and Gibson Park for Ireland, where, if they're in a different situation or a different setup, they will flourish, where they wouldn't actually get into the national team on their talent at that time?
Yeah, so, Jade, very good question. I think, look, I know Duhan quite a bit because he was part of our top, we scouted him as a top wing in our sevens program, because obviously with that kind of size, and you have that guy playing for you with that kind of pace, you're most likely going to have tipped the scales. So, but we also have to remember when he left the country, what do we had at our disposal? So I'll start with the sevens. For example, with the sevens, we had playing for the sevens at the time with Roscoe Speckman, who was pretty much in his top model. We had Sabelo Sanahla, who was also being a killer in that wing position. Then, if you move to the forwards, you had the Chris Dries, you had the Frankie Horns, you had Carl Browns, even JC Pretorius came through. So for me, he wouldn't have fitted in the sevens. But when I looked at the 15s and I see what they had, and we're talking now similar ages with Ches and Kobe's, with if you remember, Basson, Basson could do better what Duhan was doing in terms of high balls, in terms of just the finisher that he is. So, like you say, the spoon courses, those players, they were at their peak. And we cannot forget that we had our rugby structure in South Africa was exactly designed for those kind of players. Like, everyone can tell me what they want to say, but Bjorn Basson is the perfect player for the way South Africa plays. Similar to if you had a Freddie Stewart playing for South Africa, he'll probably shine most of anyone because of the fact that of what he brings to that game. That high ball is quite important, and we've seen it that Mapimpi has had to learn how to at least disrupt those kind of kicks that we want him to get to. And this is why Willemse, they even tried Fassi at wing. So for Duhan, that wouldn't have worked, especially looking now, going back and looking at the back end of that, is that our 10s don't give them that kind of situation. So for me, he would only work with that kind of Finn Russell type of player. And I mean, even at club, he went to Bath. He couldn't, I think, was it Bath, if I'm not mistaken, or Queens, but he couldn't crack it. He came back to Scotland. So he does have that which type of life. Yes, at the Lions, we look at Elton Jantjies, probably one of the best fitting flyers for him, especially. But again, who was there? Who was there at the Lions? I mean, even back then, I can remember we even had Van der Heerwe, who was the wing. I remember he went to Japan. He also went everywhere. But he's a guy who couldn't crack it, and he was probably quicker than Duhan. So there's a lot that we can talk about in terms of how that we've missed, how that talent has been missed. But we didn't have to miss it because we had the players that fitted the system. What I wanted to ask also within the pod was, we talk about, if you guys have an idea on Danny Kerr. Danny Kerr is a former sevens player, England sevens player. He's a very free-spirited player. George Ford is more like a simple, let's play the kicking game. Like if you call it back in the day, like your Derek Hogard kind of player. Now, the question is, Danny Kerr with George, the right combination? Or could they have made the switch at 10 because of Mitchell is injured? Because Mitchell is a better fit for George Ford. So that's what I'm thinking about. That's why when Hugh was talking, I put my hand up. I was thinking maybe they missed that 9-10 combination because those 9-10 combination are not the same.
So with what you're saying now, Vickers, then wouldn't Farrell be a big miss for them currently?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think that's where I'm trying to go, because maybe we missed that combination. Yes, regardless of what happened in the game, we know Scotland they just pounced on the mistakes. But for that 9-10 combination, I think for England this was a big miss. I would have preferred even Danny Kerr with Smith, with what's his name again? The Smith, I think, is injured, but he would probably work best with Danny Kerr instead of Danny Kerr and George Ford.
Okay, fair enough. Hugh, you want to comment? Guys, Italy have just missed a kick at the posts to beat France, and it's a 13-all draw, just so you know. So that's the end of the game. Sorry, what was the question? I was just engrossed in that.
No. We're talking about the combination, 9-10 combination for England. Maybe that is where Borthwick or England are losing.
So Kerr and George Ford have both been around for a long time. George Ford has been around for well over a decade. Sorry, Danny Kerr has been around for well over a decade. He's 37. So he's obviously played with George Ford plenty of times, but he was dropped by Eddie Jones. And I think in his last game under Eddie Jones actually pulled him off on 30 minutes in one of those kind of big power play substitutions. Danny Kerr is obviously very experienced, and I think his kicking is very good. but he's got a mistake in him. I honestly don't really rate any of England's nines, to be honest. I wouldn't take any of them for Wales. George Ford, I don't think is the problem. So in terms of that combination, I don't know. I think they're kind of overcoached, really. I think George Ford is running the ship, and I think what he says on the pitch is what happens, and I think he has ultimate control over the team whilst they're on the pitch. So I think the nine is just about kind of giving him what he wants, really. So I'm not sure what kind of combination they'd have better. I think they are missing Farrell, but I think most rugby teams would miss Farrell. I'd be interested if Marcus Smith was fit. I'd be interested to see what role he'd be filling. Would he be on the bench? Would he be playing at fullback, which is where Borthwick tried to use him in the World Cup? Would he be playing ahead of Ford? I don't know. I'm not sure if Marcus Smith suits this Borthwick game plan, because I think if you have Marcus Smith, you have to build the entire team around him. But they don't have the players to play what Marcus Smith wants to do. They don't have an Andre. They don't have all the South Africans, basically, that Harlequins have.
Fair enough. Hugh, sticking with you. Moving on to our next game, Ireland versus Wales. Duffett Jenkins said during the week that Wales are planning for an upset over Ireland. What are your thoughts with your home nation? How did they fare against probably the number one team currently in the world, Ireland?
Yeah, he's got to say something, hasn't he? He can't say, yeah, we're probably going to get beat. I was messaging a lot of my friends and other podcasters during the week saying it could easily be 50 here. It could very easily, Wales could take 50. So really, it's kind of not as bad as everyone was expecting. I think without the ball in defence, yes, we conceded 4 tries over the 80, although one of them came in added time. I think without the ball, we were pretty good. I think we managed to contain most of what Ireland threw at us. They didn't carve us open many times out in open play. I think it was with the ball that Wales had most of the problems. I think Gatland is still trying to play his Warren ball attack where it's just pick and goes and we tire the other team out, but we just don't have the players for that anymore. Other teams' fitness is caught up to where Wales were 10 years ago, and we just don't have the ball carriers that can get us over the gain line. So I think we need to change how we attack. I think we need to put more deception and more structure into our attack, because it's the same with all Welsh teams, whether it's the national team, the under-20s, the regions. All Welsh teams attack the same way, which is you have the ball, we'll see if you do something, and then if not, I'll have the ball and I'll do something, and then I'll give it to the next guy and see if he can do something, whereas other teams, their attack is far more nuanced, far more structured, got way more detail that we just don't have. So we need to add that to our game, in my opinion. But I think without the ball, we were pretty good. I think both teams were shattered. I think it was a very high quality game. I have to say, it maybe wasn't the most exciting, wasn't full of drama, but I think it was very brutally intense. I think there was a 7-minute ball in play period, which I don't think was the tactics to beat Ireland. I think we were never going to beat Ireland anyway, but I don't think it was the right tactic for the game, but it is still impressive and still goes to show, kind of vindicates Gatland in a kind of way that he's able to take these players who get their asses kicked up and down the URC every week, that he's able to get that kind of performance out of them. But yeah, Ireland's still doing Ireland stuff. It's interesting, if I looked at the stats, most of the carrying for Ireland was done by their backs, and most of the tackling for Wales was done by our backs. So that kind of was a detail of the game that maybe wasn't obvious whilst watching and maybe wasn't as expected. But I think that goes to show just how much ball Ireland had and how much defending Wales were doing. And just in that first half, we just kept shooting ourselves in the foot. So Sam Costello, the Welsh fly half, made 16 passes and 17 tackles. So he had Irish players in his hand more than he had the ball in his hand. So that kind of tells a story. So from a Welsh point of view, it was all right. Disappointing with the ball, but it's the best team in the world. What were people expecting?
Yeah, I think we need to give this Welsh side a nickname. Maybe the courageous.
Yeah.
The courageous 15 or something. Like, because it's a young team. We can see what Gatland is trying to achieve, but obviously inexperience is coming into effect, and obviously does have an impact within the results at the end of the day. But I mean, they're nothing short of heart. They're nothing short of courage, and you can see it on the field. And they're willing to play for each other. But obviously, the more they play, the better they become. Because I was listening to Razor talk the other day, and he was talking about the amount of time that players need on the park, the amount of time players need to just get that physical contact and the growth within them. And you can see with this Welsh team, Gatland understands the same philosophy of the more impact, the more contact, and the more games they get to play, and the more mileage, as Jade would put it, they get under their belts, the better they will become. Because, I mean, the scoreline, yes, is probably flattering for Ireland, but at the same time, if that scoreline becomes within 7 points, 5 points, you will see a different side in this Welsh team. And obviously, we understand the growth element that he's trying to set up there as well. Jade, did you get the chance to watch the Irish and the Welsh?
Yeah, I got to watch it, and like you said there, you were spot on there, Scoop. Because I mean, if you look at other international teams when they went this route, I mean, the Box did it also, where they went this route and had a younger team. They got a 50 or so against New Zealand in Hamilton, and they got a few hidings along the way as well. But you're looking at this Wales team; they're not embarrassing themselves. They're sticking together and they're taking the learnings. I mean, we can say from now on, we can look at this Welsh team. We know Rafael and Wainwright is brilliant loosies. I mean, the international standard loosies. Once they get Jack Morgan there, it's a different story, you know. So that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna have to look at with this Wales team. They're going to Australia at the end of the year, and they're gonna bowl from there as well. So for now, let's not look too much at the results. Look at the performance. I mean, they're making the tackles. They look much better than what we expected. Ireland's a champion team, guys. I mean, they're now 17 on the trot at home. I don't see a team beating them at home this year as well, and they're playing the Box and New Zealand at home at the end of the year. I don't see either of those two teams beating them at Ireland. That's the way I see this Irish team being strong. So, yeah, Wales on the right path. Need to stick at it. Like I said, get mileage on the clock. Get your tight 5 international standard. Get some mongrel in that tight 5. And then they'll be good to go. They'll be challenging for the Six Nations in 2 or 3 years' time if they keep this team together.
100%. Vickers?
Yeah, I'm with Jade on this one. I think I was going to say something similar. I think when I watched the game for myself, I think the one thing that I did see, like you said, when they didn't have the ball, they seemed to be more effective. I think also I really love their scramble defense. When we as coaches look at scramble defense, we look at heart, that more like resemblance of heart and work ethic. And I think this Welsh team has got the work ethic. Unfortunately, yes, they might not have the right kind of experience now to compete with the big teams, but in terms of work ethic, it's a tick. In terms of scrambles and making sure that you're hustling on the game, that's a tick for me. And I think with the young players that we see, I think this will definitely become one of the most strongest teams within the Six Nations. And they did make a couple of errors. Ireland made a couple of errors. Otherwise, we would have gotten to the 50. But it's the pressure that came. That's what I look at as from a positive side. It's the pressure. It's how they force those kind of errors, if I can put it that way. So I think, look, the way out of their depth, but it was still good. I think it was still good. I like one of the few things that I liked within the game was the lineouts. I don't know what Hugh feels about it. They didn't compete. None of the teams have competed against lineouts with Ireland. But when Wales started competing, all of a sudden, Sheehan couldn't get his jumper. So I think those are the kind of small positives that the coaches need to take and obviously build on it. And like Jada said, give them a few years. I think we should be looking at quite a strong young team. Not being competitive. We're not going to say we're going to win everything, but being competitive.
Hugh, you wanted to say something? I think Vio was directing that.
Yeah, I think Wales's driving maul is underrated, and our maul defence as well, and that's probably why Adam Beard is being selected, because he's not really a carrying option. Well, he's not at all a carrying option. His passing, his distribution is very good. But he doesn't obviously do stuff around the pitch, but his mauling is his big strength. I think we've obviously got Daft Jenkins in there at the moment, 21-year-old captain. He's performing very well, and his energy and his work rate is phenomenal. I think Will Rowlands on the bench is actually a better player than him, and certainly is more physical than him. But a combination of factors, I think Daft Jenkins is being picked to start. When Dilly Lake or Jack Morgan are back available, and maybe Daft Jenkins isn't captain anymore, we might see that change, and Will Rowlands comes back in. But we've gone down this path, and I'm not particularly complaining about it. So yeah, I think the Ireland aren't a big team, and Wales aren't that small. So I was pleased with how we managed to physically front up to them in defence, like you said. But yeah, it's just in attack that we're really losing that physical battle. And I think it's just down to detail. The amount of detail in our attack is just lacking compared to other teams.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if you saw it yesterday as well in the game with Peter O'Malley. When he Portier lost his bind a few times, and then he actually lifted his arm up, you know, and said, like, keep your bind up, keep your bind up. Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've actually seen this from, you know, I flank doing this, and I bet we're going to see this a lot in rugby now, where the flank actually looking at the prop, especially that like Portier that struggles with that, you know, his arm collapsing, looking at it. That's actually gold for me, just to see a flank looking at that and, you know, just telling him, keep your bind up, keep your bind up. It was one of the highlights of the game yesterday for me.
Fair enough, gentlemen. I think we've come to an end of our fantastic chat, but I've got one moment or one more thing to discuss. It's not even a discussion. I just want you guys to give me your votes. So we're going to start something new called Rugby Scoop Shithousery. So in this week, we've got 2 shithouseries, or maybe dark arts, if you want to call it. But, I mean, it's just funny moments, to be honest. First one. During the week, I read in the news that Jake White was complaining to the journalists about last week's game, where the Blue Bulls were playing Lions at Ellis Park, or Emirates Airline Park, if you prefer. And during halftime, so what happened was Emirates Airline Park was out of air conditioning, but only for the Blue Bulls change room, not for the Lions change room. And then second one, Borthwick choosing 4 vice captains. I want to get your vote. Vickers, we'll start off with you. This week's shithousery: Jake White or Steve Borthwick with 4 vice captains, or actually maybe Rudolph Strawley shithousery, because they are the ones that are in charge of air conditioning at Emirates Airline Park. So who takes this one? Borthwick or Strawley or Lions, the rugby union?
Look, Scoop, we spoke about this within the week. I think for me, I'll have to go for the vice captains because it's more rugby related. But to having 4 vice captains, it's the first. Look, maybe it's trying to do the 8-1 split. I don't know.
All right, Hugh.
I have a conspiracy theory on the vice captains, if you'd like to hear it.
Go ahead, mate.
So, earlier this year, right at the beginning of the year, the England rugby men's team split from the RPA. So the RPA is the body that negotiates the player payments from England to the players. And they set up a new one, and it's called Team England Rugby Limited. And the 5 directors of that team are Jamie George, who is England captain, Maritoje, who was a vice captain, Ellis Genge, who was a vice captain, Joe Marler, who was on the bench because him and Genge obviously can't play at the same time, and Anthony Watson, who's injured. So I think there's some dressing room politics going on in England at the moment, and I think there's a bit of a power struggle going on between Steve Borthwick and those 5 particularly strong and powerful players.
Oh, so you're going with the vice captain?
No, I think the air conditioning thing is better shithousery. I just like the conspiracy theory.
Fair enough. Thanks you. Jade?
Deciding vote, guys. I'm not going to go the Emirates Airline route because I think it was saving energy, and Strawley was doing a perfect job for Eskom, in saving energy by putting off the aircon. So, yeah, well done to Strawley with that. So I have to give it to England, and especially because Scotland also has. I think they have 2 co-captains and a vice-captain with Dupont as well. So I think for me, that was Shithousery from Borthwick announcing all of those vice-captains. So well done to England on that.
Thank you, gentlemen. So
Before you go-
vice captains win it.
Before you go,
Yeah?
Scoop, before you go,
Yeah.
what was interesting, guys, obviously we had this on the pod a few weeks ago. Dupont is going very well at the sevens. He scored the winning try to take them to the semi-final. So very well done to the best player in the world.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that question because it was like having your manager over at the braai and not asking how your salary increase is going to look, not asking your input on Dupont, but thanks for that.
Yeah. Fair enough. Guys, Vancouver Sevens are on tonight. It's the final day. So let's see how the teams fare later on tonight if you stay up and watch that. But yeah, thank you, Vuyo. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Jade. It's been great chatting with you guys once again. See you guys next week, and thank you to the listeners. You can find our pod on Apple Podcast and on Spotify as well. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a wonderful Sunday, and see you guys next week.
Cheers, all.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Ciao.